morning, everybody. Welcome to Higher Density Living. Jason is over here trying to get this Palo Santo lit. And while he's doing that, I would just like to thank all of our donors out there for helping us evolve this podcast, our website, the brand of knowledge that it is. And you'll see up here, we'll have constantly changing internet webpage that's being edited and updated. So it's more of a knowledge center for yourself and all those other listeners that are out there. But thanks to your donations, we have the ability to keep that.
And with the donations, we're going to have merch.
Yep, we're going to have
T-shirts and
merch
and
for you
cups.
guys. You name it, the logo is going to be all over it.
So
and,
if you subscribe monthly to help Higher Density Living, we'll be having some cool stuff happening.
Any of those monthly donors will send you out a cool care package. You know what I mean?
We may even have to have HDL incense.
Yeah, we got to get some HDL incense for you guys too, if that's all possible. But again, thank you for doing that. And speaking about donations, let's talk about rich witches.
Rich witches. There's an article, because I want to give a shout out to the guy on this, Johannes Dillinger.
Phenomenal article.
Yeah, professor of early modern history at Oxford Brookes University. So this is where we're taking this.
Oh, he was from Oxford?
Yeah.
I was like, I'll give it to Oxford. That's really well done.
Yeah, and it was on aeon.co, which is the website. Yeah, Aeon. So let's start off with Margaret Honen, this German lady. She lived in the late 16th century. She was known by her neighbors as kind of having a bad reputation.
Yeah.
And so the bad reputation comes from, because we're talking about witches, so obviously you can see, excuse me, she was despised for being and I can't pronounce this word, parvenu?
Yeah, parvenu. Yeah.
Parvenu, a money-grabbing miser.
Yeah, avarice, right? They absolutely, I will do anything under the sun to make a profit.
And we're going to get into dragons, German dragons here in a second. And we'll probably need to we will do a whole episode on dragons because I think that would be fun.
I think dragons are sweet.
But Honen was also said to be a witch who met regularly with the dragon. And for her neighbors, those around her, I mean, you got to realize this is 16th century. Her economic behavior was clearly linked to the visits from the dragon.
Yes.
So what happened was she ended up being executed.
Yeah, do you have it highlighted in there what has to define a person as a witch?
Yeah, and I want to get into that.
I think we need
yeah, because this is really, you guys are going to be, and I think we're going to be able to correlate a lot of this to what is happening now, especially with what happened with the elections and everything that goes down. And I don't want to get into it real heavy, but some of the cancel culture stuff going on, some of how higher educational facilities, are, so I called it facilities.
Yes. Nice job.
Some of these economic facilities, and I don't get me ranting on colleges, but the main focus is going to be Germany.
Yeah.
In this article, because half of all the people executed for witchcraft
was in Germany.
Yeah.
People want to think Salem, Massachusetts. There was only like 4 or 5 witches.
Yeah, exactly.
That actually were like burnt to the stake or drowned or whatever it was in Salem, Mass.
Yeah, and all of it was this whole idea of having the ability to understand. It really wasn't about magic, and we'll get into that because of the treasure hunters and stuff like that. But the main thing was you had hundreds of principalities in this Holy Roman Empire.
That's correct.
Let me get you started on the Holy Roman Empire. and they would pass their own criminal laws. Mm-hmm. And they had incompetent lay judges because you had hundreds of principalities. And they were empowered to torture.
And they had their own take on what that actual law from the HRE really meant.
So you set up like this perfect storm. You have an agrarian society with no money. Mm-hmm. You have all these incompetent politicians.
Yes.
Ooh.
Oh, interesting. And you have people that are making quick changes, and witchcraft and magic has been around for a while, and there's no Twitter.
Right. Yes.
The place is ripe for doing things that don't hit the media.
So before we get into investigating witchcraft and these rich witches, I want to get into differentiating between real and imaginary magic in this time frame.
Yeah. So what is real magic? When at the onset, before the Holy Roman Empire, you had Druids in that area.
Right.
The culture was very, I'm going to go into the woods, call out those spirits, whatever it might be. Look to nature, call upon, angels or demons or the dead or whatever it might be, so that it can do some sort of bidding for me. Magic was really about like a connection to nature and also an application of work. All right, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then the Holy Roman Empire comes in. They're like, hey, we're essentially running this whole joint. All those druids, any of those sort of, barbaric people that don't fall underneath the order of God, we can't be having that stuff anymore. So a bunch of laws are written in by, especially King Henry VIII around witchcraft. And they're like, these people are not holy people. They're practicing things that associate them with the devil. And so when you talk about real witchcraft, you had to hit certain markers that defined what you had to hit certain markers that defined what witchcraft really was and your association with it. But you had to hit all of them.
Yeah, and we'll get into those. I think it's really interesting.
But what they found is that these witches, or these so-called witches, never actually hit all of the markers. Not even one.
No.
It was just if people thought.
It was assumed.
Yeah, or if someone thought you were going to become one.
Right.
Not even that you had to be one, but you were on your way to becoming one. Time to go to the stake.
And you can see that. Do you remember the whole tulip bubble?
Oh, you're talking about up in, oh gosh, I don't want to say Holland, Denmark?
Yeah, but I mean, it was like...
Tulip mania.
Yeah, it was tulip mania, this ability. And then, tulip bulbs became like this. You're seeing it with Bitcoin right now.
Yeah.
So which I think Bitcoin is a value, and, it has potential to reach $1 million a coin, whatever, especially as we have decentralization and all that. I understand that. And if you want to understand more of that, you can go to turtle.co.
Thank you.
TCast, that website. We get into that really heavy on the technology side of things. But whenever we're looking at magic, and this is very important because we have to make sure we're laying this, because this is going to help you when you're making decisions based off of mass hysteria, fear, or understanding,
or belief,
and then looking at logic, not emotion. So magic, real magic, or what you want to call it, was common practice. So being a witch was totally different than magic, and they had very simple forms.
Yeah,
they had the divination. They had healing magic. A lot of it was related to agriculture.
Yeah, because if all of these different spirits were embodied in certain types of crops and weather and the land, so how is it that you call upon those things so that you could have some sort of gain or benefit by actually interacting with nature and doing a bidding for it?
So your average peasant in his farm would have charms, and they were supposed to keep your livestock in good health. Yeah. Urban artisans and merchants, you would go, in the city and on the streets, they would be selling. People use magic daily.
Think about, I just saw someone the other day wearing a Moroccan evil eye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think
it's constantly used.
We have that's not that one.
Well, we got the Ira over there, but yeah, you know what I'm saying though, right? And that's supposed to absorb that bad energy. Or if you go over to Chinese culture, when you wear jade,
right? Okay,
if that jade falls off your wrist and breaks, it has then taken that bad energy and then dispersed it. Like it did its job. It essentially sacrifices itself for you to keep you protected, right? And the same thing's happening in Germany with, these. Frankly, none of them were educated. 0 of them were educated, and they were farming around. It was a very feudal system, essentially.
Yeah, because you had the magical treasure hunters.
These guys are great.
Yeah, and they never got in trouble.
No, and well, you got to think about the perspective of this too. These magical treasure hunters, they were all male.
Yes, and so the egalitarian society was not there,
right? And so the key point here about this article is that why is it that the male treasure hunters that were doing magic, even with druids, right, or wizards, whatever you want to call them, were only loosely, fined or forced to do some sort of manual labor for the town? But why is it that somebody, specifically the women, and actually it's not just the women and the men within a town are the ones that were persecuted for being a witch?
Yeah, and because
the magical
treasure hunters were selling spell books, buy all kinds of spell books by any description. You had these divining rods. They were available in all different types of wood.
Yeah.
You had the amulets to protect them against evil spirits. You had lead tablets etched with magical signs.
Love that.
And most treasure, everybody knew this. Most treasure were watched over by some kind of spirit.
Right. And so this is a big start. This is where the factor starts to differentiate.
Yeah.
Is that the treasure is owned by the spirit.
Yes.
And you got to keep that in mind for your frame of reference. The protection of all those things when you go to acquire it, you're acquiring the treasure from a spirit, not from another human being, not from anything else. All right? So we can keep going here.
So the treasure hunters simply had to pay a fine if they did get in trouble. They never got accused of witchcraft, but if they did, they would have to do penal labor for a couple days. But most treasure magic was not seen as witchcraft. So because we always think of witchcraft as like, you could sell a spell book, but if you take the spell book and you're using it and then you can use it, most people would buy them and use them. But it was this whole idea of becoming a witch was this like greedy, and we'll get into it in specifics because I think this is really interesting. But being guilty of witchcraft, because that you have to look at it. So being guilty of witchcraft, because I want people to understand this, because when a mass group makes you guilty, now we've got to see, exactly in that form and in that process of how they got there.
Yeah. How is it that the group collective thought has said this specific person, we're going to define them as a witch?
Yeah. And
even if we have zero evidence.
Yes, that's the key. So it's the same right now with, everybody's harping on Bill Gates, and whether he's evil or good, I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know his intent or his heart. But this whole thing of him, taking children and scaring the shit out of them and then taking their blood and, really? Is that?
Well, that's considered transfer magic, Jason.
Yeah.
That's Yale Skull and Crossbones.
And they call it like androchromial or something. There's this whole, and you can go on, that whole website that they took down was created on this with the far right, that QAnon or whatever it is.
Yeah.
This whole website was built off of all of these conspiracy theories. And then they just start building one on the other. And then you get a whole group of people. And now you've got memes. Memes have become very important. They're almost like the symbol or language
becomes cultural
of a tribe.
Now. It's embedding itself into the culture. Right?
So now you have all these memes that are getting transferred, millions. They were talking millions a day of showing a picture of Bill Gates looking like a vampire.
So then what happens though? Now the frame of reference, now the light at which these people are painted is in the frame of reference of people that have absolutely no truthful backing to this thing that they put together, but they've turned it into their reality.
Yes.
And then from that, if the group turns it into their reality, then they can use that and you can never say otherwise.
Yeah, it's like the memes from Epstein Island. Let's roll with those. That was proven.
That's a proven
That's a
thing.
fact. There's an island. There was a temple on there, a Jewish-looking temple. So they're probably doing Kabbalah magic, would be my guess.
Old Kabbalistic magic.
Yeah, old Kabbalistic magic. There was ties to the Mossad, the Israeli, CIA, basically. That Epstein was working for. All these things are true. There's videotapes floating around somewhere. You have a lady sitting in jail with protection right now. You have Epstein, either he killed himself or somebody killed him. That we don't know. But we know that, and then he was talking to super prominent people. We know like Bill Clinton went to the island like 20-something times. He was flying on his plane. That's all confirmed. We know that there's a prince over in England that talked about it. He did a special interview that's awkward as hell. If you watch it, I watched it. For 45 minutes. So that I understand. That's not a conspiracy theory. There's actually something going on there that's nefarious.
Correct.
But when you look at this, and I want us to get into this, in the late Middle Ages, the crime consisted of 5 elements. So here's defining witchcraft. A pact with the devil. And then stop me in if you want to talk.
These are great. I love hearing what defines a witch.
A pact with the devil.
Okay. What type of pact? What are you saying? Like, all right, we in agreement.
Well, the agreement was for like selfish gain, supposedly. Like I'm gonna say, well, I mean, how many times do we see even in literature people people have accused like artists, like, okay, racism was a big point. Remember when they were talking about blues and stuff like that? And they have where, this African-American gentleman makes a pact with the devil and thus he can sing the blues. And and then Elvis did that because he's shaking his hips.
Great film, Crossroads, with Steve Vai in it and the Karate Kid. I forget what his name was. And that was the thing. Like, there was this like blues jazz club and the devil ran it. And the devil was Steve Vai, right? And you had to make a pact with him. And that's how he would essentially like give you immortality or whatever it was. But the devil here is representative of the destruction of all good things. Mm-hmm. That's the idea of what the devil is here.
Yeah, and let's get into this falsehood of the devil.
Well, the devil, the word devil.
Think about it. It's in all the books.
No,
the religious books.
What this guy here, I'll get into this. If you go further back, we talked about the Druids were in this Bavarian area, right? Of what is now at this point the Holy Roman Empire in the 1500s.
Right.
The word devil comes from a Proto-Germanic word called Tubal. And Tubal was a very strong, very, how would I say this? Clairvoyant hunter. He was a hunter-tracker. And this very barbaric tribal person would go out and use their telepathic powers. And he would go out and hunt specific beasts and like bring them back to the town. And people revered this person as this great hunter. And then this Tubal decided that he wanted to begin to wear the actual skull cap on a hat. And they usually had horns and stuff like that, depending on the animal that he had killed, because it helped him with his association with that spirit of that animal. It would help him track.
Right.
And only later...
he could feel like he was one with nature.
That's precisely correct. And only later did the church take this very strong character before the Holy Roman Empire and turn it into something that was... what they called this devil, this idea of a devil. Had horns, cloven feet, shit like that, right? But the guy was just a world-class tracker. But the word Tubal goes back way further than you could ever imagine for the word devil. Devil is just like almost like a newer thought or idea that had sprung up. But the Tubal, before that, it was another one of those people that they had to frame and turn into this sort of enemy, because if the church has an enemy, then you have something for people to stand against.
Yeah, it's the hero's journey.
Yeah, it's another one of those hero's journeys.
But the church made itself the hero.
But the devil is really nothing. There's nothing about it, right?
No, there's no...
It's like the German Tubal.
The Bible where it talks about Satan and Lucifer and all that.
You gotta look up word etymology and how things have evolved.
But people actually believe that the devil is real.
They think it's a real thing.
These people believe that in the 16th century. Well, and we're in the 21st century and we're still believing in it.
But the thing is, the church told them that the devil's real.
Right.
And then anything bad that's happening is either one, because you're born of sin, or two, because the devil's against you. Mm. Okay? Or God's trying to hold you down so you can learn a bad lesson.
Well, it's even now that, I received a text the other day from someone that I don't even hardly know, but I think they kind of mass sent it out.
Yeah.
A contact I had a long time ago. And they were talking about how Satan is controlling Biden. And this was obviously a far right person talking about, his decisions that he's making. The stimulus bill. Dude, the stimulus bill is Luciferian. And fallen angels are helping him
Oh, no, the fallen angels.
I guarantee you he's not that smart.
I'd be like...
he's a career politician.
I was like, can you show me the proof?
Yeah.
Prove it to me. If he's really working with the devil... prove to me that he works for the devil, and also prove to me that the devil exists.
And can I say something about, I'm going to side note real quick.
Oh, God.
Shut me up.
Here we go.
All politicians are for one thing and one thing only.
Money.
Money and empowering their little corporate little buddies.
That's it.
And the lobbyist. It's so simple, guys. It's that simple.
Why do politicians have private jets?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't add
And they only
up.
make, how much do they make?
They're supposed to make $55K.
Yeah, it's like that gal in California, the one that got busted without her mask on and all that stuff at the beauty salon.
Yeah.
One of the main, Speaker of the House or whatever.
That's correct.
Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
She's worth like, I forgot what it was. It's
huge
like
amount of money.
ridiculous amounts of money. It's like, how did that happen being a career politician?
I've always said, if you want to be a politician, you got to do it for free.
Yes. And have 8 years is the most, or 4 years. It's like so hard to stop business from creeping in. Even if you said
No lobbyists. None of this. People will still find a way.
Well, and we need to realize corporations run governments.
And yeah,
nowadays,
that's
all across the globe.
The governments are beholden to what the corporation wants.
How is Putin considered the richest man in the world? They said pretty much he's the richest man. He built that. They caught the
fertilizer,
that
oil,
$1 billion mansion or whatever he built. And they have that guy released it. Now he's in prison.
It's a Palace of Versailles, except for Russia.
So we have 5 elements: a pact with the devil.
Uh-huh.
The next one I love.
This is great.
Sexual intercourse with demons.
Right. So not only do I have to make a pact with this negative entity, but now I have to do transfer magic with one of the devil's bidding entities that sits underneath it. So it sits in a hierarchy. Devil, then a demon, and then I have to mix with this demon. I have to give part of my material self to this thing. Succubus, incubus, incubus, succubus.
And you see in Salem the Puritans, this sexual, and then you see this non-egalitarian.
It sounds like they were sexually oppressed people.
Well, that's what religion does to you. I mean, look at the Catholic Church with priest.
Oh, I know.
You cannot. You're evolutionary. You have millions of years of you to procreate. We're made to have sex.
And they keep telling you bad, don't do it, not allowed to do it.
Sex
and so what
is
do
not
they do?
a bad thing.
Now these guys start breaking the rules and they take it out on little kids.
Right.
It's what the Boston Globe or whatever it is wrote about, right?
Yeah, so sexual intercourse with demons sounds like a lot of fun, but
I don't know what that would look like.
Eyes wide shut.
I hope they don't have cloven hooves. Yeah, Stanley Kubrick would probably be all over that.
I need one of those demon hats.
Yeah, we got to get
what
you
do you call
one.
them? Tubaron?
We'll get tubal hats.
Yeah, we need a tubal shirt.
We'll get a tubal shirt. People have no idea what it is.
And then, so we have sexual intercourse with demons. Then we have the magical flight. Broomsticks.
You got to be on a broomstick.
Yeah.
No, if you don't have a big branch with a bunch of tiny branches wrapped at the bottom with twine, and if you're not flying around by moonlight,
but it's funny how this all kind of plays into this whole Freudian, like a woman riding a broomstick.
Broomstick.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
Very phallic. What's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. Next one is the witch's dance, often referred to by the anti-Semitic term witch's Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is him talking about this. So, and there was another article I was reading about where people would do ecstatic dance till they died. And it was like a mass hysteria thing.
Sounds
where
like
people
me at a rave.
Yeah, exactly. No,
I'm
that's
like,
a good
holy
way.
shit, I'm going to drop dead. I'm so exhausted.
But, and then people were actually going out there and they were losing control of their mind. Mm-hmm. And they were dancing to exhaustion and then to death. And there would be hundreds of them that would get together and do this.
It's incredible.
So, I mean, this is the same thing. You can work yourself. It's like, have you ever gone to like a Pentecostal church where they're speaking in tongues?
People are passing out and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they're like flailing around.
I love watching those videos online.
Borat showed how false that is. Remember the first movie?
Pentecostal, very nice.
And he went in there, and that's awesome. So we have.
You have clock radio. I have best witch in all of Kazakhstan.
And then we have malevolent magic.
Boryadiev thinks he has better clock radio. He does not. Sorry.
He would know about magic.
Okay, I bet Kazakhstan was probably all over it.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I mean, back in those days, yeah, I can like Romania. That whole
Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah.
Don't get me. Transfer magic, vampires.
So malevolent magic. But in early modern Europe and Britain, witchcraft was a capital crime.
It was capital. But hold on. You have to hit all of those markers. I got to be packed with the devil, fucking demons, riding a broomstick, doing crazy dances by moonlight. All right. And I have to be practicing something that is somebody who I have to coin as negative magic.
Yes, exactly.
I have to do all of those things. If I hit all those markers, I'm a witch.
Yeah, and so he goes in the article, he says this, and this is beautiful. At first glance, the relation between the economy and the imaginary magic of the witches seemed to be entirely negative.
Mm-hmm.
Witches were often accused of attacking livestock. They magically made frost storm in hell, and thereby caused crop failure.
But the witch also had its own farm, and the crop failure happened for both parties.
But we see this nowadays where we want to blame, especially now, because this just transfers, and this is human nature, a devolving human nature. And we just transfer the responsibility instead of saying, it was just the weather that did it. I mean, we just had a frost come in. We want to make sure that we have somebody to blame,
right?
Our group to blame.
Yeah, because it's easier. You don't have to. If you can blame, then you don't have to understand.
And there's no responsibility in blaming.
That's exactly my point. I don't have to think about it. Nothing like that. I can blame this person. They can be to blame. I can hate them, put negative energy, disunify. You're the one that destroyed my crops. And I don't even have to think about any logic, science, nothing behind the whole event.
Yeah, and also I get to be the victim.
Yeah, and if I can get a crowd of victims, now we get a whole group victim mentality with pitchforks saying, we're victims of this individual.
Right.
We believe that they're a witch. Let's go get them.
Yeah, exactly. So these witches and their weather magic was said to endanger the economy of entire regions because it was so powerful it could affect the whole region.
Who's the guy? Who's the guy who was Freud's cousin who came up with this stuff?
Yeah.
So he was doing weather magic. He was using Oregon to control weather, create rain clouds.
Yeah, William Hurst, was it?
Something like that. I can't remember his name now.
If I got that, that's like amazing that was. Let's see if I'm actually William Hurst. Or who is William Hurst?
Dude, William Hurst sounds like...
hey, Bill.
Yeah. Some political science guy. William Randolph Hearst. American newspapers. Yellow journalism. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. That's somebody else I'm studying. But whenever we look at majority of the witch trials on the European continent, the witches didn't profit from their magic. Weather magic especially looked like a strange form of autoaggression because the hellstorms the witches supposedly conjure up damage their own fields as well. And that's what you said.
That's exactly what I was just saying.
As a rule, the pact with the devil, as it appears in trial records, there's trial records of this, was not a contract like that of Ghost Foss, which was mostly about the wishes of the magician. Rather, it stated simply that the witch submitted to the will of the demon. Now, this is important. It submitted to the will of the demon. Yeah. She did what a demon told her and became the instrument of demons' abyssal hatred of all creation.
And remember I said the demon with the devil, they want to destroy all good things in our creation. They associate the word devil with anti-logos. Little do they know the word God, right? Or Jesus or Christ is actually the denomination of anti-logos.
Yeah, it's spelled dog backwards. Dogs are gods.
But what are you going to do? A crowd comes up to you, right? This victim crowd, and you got a junk, what do you call those guys? Judge. You got a junk judge, right? Yeah, and you got some sort of local priest or minister, and they're like, you were doing the bidding of this demon. And you're like, no, I wasn't. They're like, yeah, you were. How are you going to tell him otherwise? How are you going to prove otherwise? To say that, no, I'm not under control of a demon.
Well, this whole idea that you can submit to evil. That's kind of what I want to, and we're going to have a second part on this, but this whole idea that you can submit to evil.
Yeah.
Like you're fighting it, because we have this nowadays, like this whole stay positive, be disciplined, and going against the grain and pushing myself forward, and motivation, we can look at that and those are all good things, but we're always fighting. Like that, we always have this parasympathetic system of fight or flight.
Why is it fight breast cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Fight police brutality. Think about that comment. Think about how stupid the logic is in that comment. Fighting police brutality. Fighting cancer. Everything is a war effort.
How about use the word cure?
Yeah, cure.
Police brutality. Cure cancer. Yeah. How can we get together in unity and solve the problem?
The words, they have a problem of disunity, and then they hit it with more disunity.
Mm-hmm.
Negative with another negative. You're just increasing the resonance of this negativity.
Because you see what they did. This is that same mentality, what they did with scientists. And we still, that's why I like Russia so much with how they praise scientists and make them heroes. Engineers and scientists are considered to be, heroes in that country. But how much suppression have we done of anything that goes against our thought process or religion?
Dude, look at Wikipedia.
I mean, look at Michelangelo, some of the greatest. Look at Socrates and Plato. All of these, whether they're philosophical or whether they're scientists, whatever they is, when they begin to go against the norm.
Artists.
Yeah, artists. When they begin to go against the norm, then this mass hysteria begins to take over, and now they're labeled evil. They've submitted alchemy.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
They're tyrannical or whatever they might be. Anything to also make them the other because they think differently.
You cannot, whether you believe in demons, angels, or whatever, God, devil, no identity can take over you. You can't, even with channeling, because we talk about this with law, the raw material. Even with channeling, there's a submissiveness that's going on, and any entity that tries to impose on your free will is wrong.
It's totally wrong.
So when we see free will being over and over and over again being taken out against a person, then that's one that automatically shows that you're wrong.
It should already negate the whole crowd.
Right.
Like that should be one of the things. Oh, is this going against person free will? Maybe we shouldn't be walking around with pitchforks and saying this person's a witch and we got to go put them on trial.
But you are not that powerless. Like the devil made me do it. People will say that in crimes.
The thing is,
are serial killers, like the Night Stalkers on Netflix now, you know, and that whole idea of he believed that he would put pentagrams, Charles Manson.
It took time for you to develop those thoughts in your mind.
Here we go.
Whether you were reinforcing things into your subconscious or you had a chemical instability, right? Those things took time to develop. It's not just, this didn't happen out of the blue. Oh, I'm freaking possessed. I got to go kill a bunch of people. You have been thinking about it for a while. And no one pulled the trigger, took out the knife, cut the people up, boiled them in a pot, took their skin off, put them in a Kevorkian van. None of these things. You did it. You were under your own power. No one grabbed your body,
right?
Took your arm and put the knife in it and started moving your appendages back and forth to do the action of murdering somebody.
Or I watched that. It's on HBO, the whole Heaven's Gates, that cult where 39 people
drinking the stuff
and then
see
committed
aliens.
Suicide. Yeah. But it's so funny. So here you have years and years of brainwashing. That's what I call it, of this teaching.
Washing, that's funny.
Then they because they're waiting for aliens to come grab them. So then, what was it, Haley Bop, or what's that comet?
Haley's.
Haley's comet comes. They even go and take all their money and go buy a really expensive telescope because the leader that had died, the lady that had died in that, she was supposed to be behind the comet. And so what they were hoping for, and on Art Bell, Coast to Coast AM, they had a guy come on there and they listened to this, and he was eventually wrong, but they said that there was a spacecraft behind the comet. So they went, so they're like, yay, it's our time. We're going to evolve. We're going to move forward in our generation, because they watch Star Trek all the time. They even had the suits like Star Trek.
No way.
Yeah, and they would push their butt. They had little patches. And
do they know what comets are made out of? Do they know what causes the tail of a comet? Yeah. It's melting gases. Well, it's gases that were in this like melted ice.
But they bought this is funny. So they bought this really expensive telescope because they interviewed the guy that had sold it to him in the local place. They bought it. They look up there. They don't see anything behind the comet with this expensive telescope. Sure. So they take it back and say the telescope is bad.
No. Oh God.
Do you see what?
Imagine if I bought some scientific material and I said, it's not showing me that the earth is flat. This must be faulty. Take it back.
And you have this group of people, and they made these tapes the night before, all these tapes saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Really nice, educated people. They were making money off of making websites and stuff. And this was in the 90s, 96, I think is when this happened. So you have these really intelligent people, computer engineers and stuff like that. So these are being sucked into this has all levels of intelligence.
Intelligence does not stop you from being sucked into these things, into these like systems of belief.
Yes. And we have a whole episode on belief.
Wisdom will stop you from being sucked in, where I can take rational experience and apply it with my intelligence to be wise. But just having intelligence, if I had book smart all day long, when someone came up like, hey, you want to be a part of the church? Yeah, I guess my day's not going too well. I should join in this. Oh, this feels pretty good. But you never once thought about any of the logic around the founding of it, what it means, who's running it. But you got a PhD. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, you're not immune from it.
The worst is Jehovah's Witnesses. There's only 200. No, there's only.
Can you refine how you just said
that?
Yeah. The worst is what? No. The worst what?
The belief.
Okay, the worst belief system.
Yeah, one of the worst belief systems.
There we go.
One of the worst belief systems. I'm just ranting.
I know.
That's great. One of the worst belief systems, Jehovah's Witnesses, because there's only 144,000 that are going to be accepted. So it's like you have so many people you're better off to make the NBA than you are to be part of the chosen in the that's just a losing. So now I got to go work really hard to probably be part of the 144,000. But the 144,000 out of even right now 7.8 billion people on the earth.
Yeah.
How am I going to be that special?
Dude, that
I can't work enough.
No,
I'm just not smart enough.
You have to start killing all your other Jehovah's Witnesses.
Ultimately, that's what. Yeah.
Right?
Ultimately, that's what you would need to figure out a way.
And on that sour note, we'll be right back.